And thank you very much for staying with us here on the Joy News channel and joining us on PM Express. I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot about this, but it's become an epidemic. And that's what we're calling it on PM Express. Let's call it spade a spade. It is having a significant cost on our democracy. And let's talk about it. Because as you may know, the NPP just finished their orphan constituency primary. And again, we heard of reports of vote buying. The difference between what we've been talking about for years, decades now, and what we are currently witnessing this year and the previous year in all the internal primaries that we've had in the parties is now the individuals who are actually paying the bribes and those taking are doing it in the open. And they are doing it with impunity. They are actually talking about it, they are admitting it, and it is on show. They don't care that the cameras are there. They actually speak into the camera and say, yes, we took it. In fact, some of them were as bold as declare that if they don't get the money, they were not going to vote. That's the difference between what we've seen in the past and what we're seeing now. So we've seen some action by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. These individuals, they put their faces out there. And almost all of them were individuals that we captured in our coverage of the MPP orphan constituency primary. Watch.
Vote buying is generally viewed as a purely economic exchange in which the voter sells his or her vote to the highest bidder. In such attempts, the giver hopes to produce instrumental and normative compliance to successfully gear recipients to change their electoral behavior in exchange for tangible rewards. While the two major political parties continue to preach against corruption in Ghana, it has become a common act to induce votes during internal and external elections. The NDC presidential and parliamentary primaries for election 2024 witnessed instances where delegates were seen rushing for cash at Ejurase Chudumase during the entry of parliamentary aspirant Juliana Kinan-Wassan. Her infamous act caught the attention of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. She was invited to aid in investigating her on corruption and corruption-related offences. At the Kumewu and Asin North by-elections, both the NDC and the MPP were accused of inducing voters to influence their votes. The NPP's presidential primary also witnessed an intensive display of cash from leading candidates to influence the votes of delegates.
My issue now is since the candidates started their tour, my coordinator has seized my money, getting to 1,200 cedis.
I received 300 cedis from Kennedy Japan's camp and 400 cedis from Honorable Baumia. Dr. Baumia camp.
The widespread accusation of money sharing was confirmed by Sami Wuku, campaign manager for Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. But speaking on the probe with MFA Appel, Mr. Wuku said the alleged 400 cedis distributed to delegates by his candidate was not to influence their votes.
These major political parties, they always give support, the aspirants. The NPP as a political party gave support to these delegates to also help assist them in their transportation.
At the just ended MPP parliamentary primary in orphan constituencies, delegates were seen displaying cash purported to have come from some aspirants.
That's a lot of money. Oh. Yeah, I need more money. Show me more money.
What can I show to you?
And you got all this just today?
Just today. Just a few hours.
A bag full of cash. Wow.
At Ejurase Chudumase, some delegates refused to cast their vote if aspirants failed to induce them.
We will go
and cast our votes if they bring us the money they promised.
Scanning by
No money, no vote. Some individuals captured in Joy News' report during the just-ended MPP primaries in orphan constituencies are being pursued by the OSP for engaging in acts of corruption and corruption-related offences. Speaking to Joy News on the widespread practice, the fundraising manager at the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Michael Boadi, said there is a need for a legislation to criminalize vote buying in the country.
As a people, now that we are talking about it, what we need to be doing is to be looking at having a black and white legislation that criminalizes vote buying. You know, the whole vote buying thing had been defined hinging on the intention to influence a voting decision. And therefore, when one argues that, well, our intention is not to influence voting decision, they think they can get away with it. We must look at tightening a piece of legislation and ensure that it is wrong and it is criminal.
The Representation of People Law 1992, PNDC Law 284, as amended PNDC Law 2961, Section 33, provides that a person commits the offense of bribery if he or she makes a gift or provides something of value to a voter to induce the vote in a certain way. This, if tenaciously adhered to, will no doubt launch Ghana into an enduring democratic process. But if the leading political actors continue to encourage and indulge in vote buying, the practice will dent the true democratic governance in Ghana. For Joy News, Nana Boachidankwayatom, Kumasi.
So the evidence is overwhelming, right? And that's the law there, a Representation of the People Law, 1992. And it says a few things here. A person commits an offense or bribery if, as you see here, he directly or indirectly through another person gives money or obtains an office for a vote in order to induce a voter to vote or refrain from voting. So that's the first part of this. And then you have the corruption and corruptly does such an act on account of a voter having voted or refrained from voting. And then you have the makes a gift. And as you see in the case of the Ablekuma Center, for example, the gift came in the form of a buffet. They were just spoiled for choice, as my colleague just captured. Makes a gift or provides something of value to a voter to induce a voter to vote in a certain way or to obtain the election of a candidate. So the law is clear on this matter. I mean, as you see the OSP chasing them, both parties, in fact, all the political parties, it happens in there. The evidence is now very glaring. As you see, the people themselves are talking about it very openly. It used to be an allegation. They will come and say it never happens. The delegates are talking about it. The people who are giving it are also talking about it. There's a case I'll show you pretty shortly in the case of the MPP elections, where one of the aspirants in Ablekuma Central was publicly saying to us that, yes, I gave money. But the thing is that they justified, and I'm talking about the Collins Amwa in Ablekuma Central. He actually had branded the envelopes. He had put his name on the envelope. So the envelopes came, yes, with his name on it. It was a brand. In other words, when he gave you the money, he wanted to leave you in no doubt that he gave you the money. And he spoke to us about this. He himself said, yes, I had to give the money. And because the delegates needed it. And he explained it in many ways. Either it's for transportation, he says it's TNT. And so that is where the catch is. Because if the intention is not to induce the voter to vote for him, but simply to facilitate his movement, they come under that. And they say that is really not an attempt to induce the voter, to cause the voter to vote for them. That's one case. And we saw, of course, in the NDC's case, the aspirant there who was on top of a vehicle, they're spraying the car. So this happens quite a lot. And we're seeing it now play out across the country, across all the political parties. But the sort of money involved, just mind-boggling. If you take the admissions that we've heard, say if you go to the MPP, for example, and you saw the accusations that Bawumia gave 400, Kennedy Pong gave 300, and you're using even 10,000 delegates. You're talking about 400,000 for Bawumia. You're talking about 300,000 for Kennedy. And then you talk about 150,000 delegates. Talk about 60 million there. But here's the thing. If you're using the actual delegate numbers of 204,000, as we indeed happened in the MPP primary, you're talking about 81 million CDs. That's huge. That's huge, just that. And you know that that's not the only money that will happen, because once you go around the country once, and the candidates, they go at least twice. So each time you go, you have to give some money. Where are they getting this sort of money from to finance this? And then you come to what we know happens in the case of John Dramani Mahama, of course, and they issued a statement to this effect. 40 CDs, I believe, was given as TNT package for the delegates to be shared. And if you're talking about 355,000 delegates, you are in a region of 14.2 million CDs. That's a lot of money, indeed, to go around. And the delegates are making a lot of money out of this. And that's why they're saying, if you don't give me the money, I'm not going to vote. Now, that's where we are. But the delegates are openly, publicly talking to journalists and saying, give me the money or I won't vote. They feel entitled now because the people seeking your votes in the party. This happens within the parties. Why is it that you expect that it won't happen in national elections? Trust me, next year it will happen. It's been happening for a while. Look at the CDD numbers, and I'm very, very sure these numbers are become completely outdated. But at least that's the most credible numbers we have. $100 million for a presidential campaign. This is outdated, but yet this is huge in a country like Ghana, where we're struggling with an IMF bailout. We are looking for 600 million, and one president to be a president, to run a presidential campaign and prosecute it successfully in $100 million. And I'm saying that this is outdated. I'm pretty sure it's going to be far more than this. And we'll be talking to the CDD themselves pretty shortly. Parliamentary primaries, $693,000. Where do you even get that from? The parliamentary elections, I mean, not primary, the parliamentary elections. Where do you even get this kind of money from? More than $500,000 there. That is real jaw-dropping numbers. I'm going to bring in the political parties, and I'm going to bring in civil society. Let's have a conversation. So what will change this? Is it a law? And I know CDD has been at this for a while now. It's about campaign financing. If you make it inexpensive, if you find a way to reduce the cost, maybe you don't have to be doing this. Let's have this conversation after this. Thanks for staying with us. I'm looking forward to this conversation indeed, and it's always brought to you by Syntex Tanks. Alomo Test also brought to you by Ghana AIDS Commission, and the Syntex Tank is always what I recommend for you because they introduce a double layer tank, and now you can also have your as many layers as you want. The Syntex Tanks is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana, and we now introduce you to the customer specs order. We let you order any color and size of preference. Syntex Tank gives you the longest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you in Ghana. So whatever your water consumption, size of project or demand, choose Syntex Tanks. We have agents nationwide. Call them on 0244-335-168 or shop online at syntexga.com. A strong, a tough. My guest, Daniel Domelevo, is a former Auditor General. Now, of course, as you know, an anti-corruption campaigner, joins us via Zoom. Thank you very much. Grateful to have you. Haruna Mohammed is the NPP Deputy General Secretary. Mustafa Gbande is the NDC Deputy General Secretary. Both of them are with me in the studio. You cannot have this conversation without the parties because that is where the problem sits. Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante is the Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the CDD. And Doc, I want to start with you because we still quote your research. $100 million, $600,000 for the parliamentary candidate. Based on what you're seeing, especially the video I played, how blatant it's become, I wonder what your views are on the matter still. Hello, Doc. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And greetings to Mr. Domelevo and the guest in your studio. I think it's very, very clear that we have a problem, and the problem is getting worse. I'm sure the parties themselves will admit that we are getting to a stage where it is completely degrading the foundations of our democracy. I mean, you can start with the parties themselves. You know, the more the parties become transactional in their activity, money becomes a big player. So basically, it's really who can pay more. Yes, of course, people can pay and still lose elections. But the point is that anybody who is going into the election is calculating that the other person might use money, and that then generates its own incentives. for parties wherever they have to get the money in order to go and compete, so that they stand a chance of winning. Now, when you taint a political process, which is supposed to birth a government, right from that, foundation, then the whole governance value chain becomes tainted, because wherever they are getting the money and putting it to elections, somebody is going to try and recover that money when they are in government. And when you have that kind of mindset, you can't really push any serious policy agenda. There's always going to be a conflict of interest every time you try to carry out the business of governance. And this is what we have been experiencing for many, many years. The parties themselves have also become captured. And once you do that, then even the democracy that you want to build right from the party stage becomes a problem, because candidates are using money to influence whether they get selected and so on and so forth. And many people feel disenchanted if they cannot mobilize money to stand for elections. So we are threatening the very foundation of multi-party democracy. And if we don't find an antidote to this problem, I think for me, it is going to get worse and really threatens the democracy that, for at least under the Fourth Republic, has been the longest surviving process, the political process for us, something that we should be proud of compared to what has happened in other parts of the continent. So I am actually happy that we are not just looking at the buyers of votes, we are now also looking at the sellers of votes, because I think that a lot of the lip service is enough. Citizens also have to understand that if they want to create a demand, then they also suffer the consequences, because that is also illegal, because it's really the market that we are trying to close down. So whoever is buying and selling at the market should suffer the same consequences.
I mean, Daniel Demalevo, considering that the advocacy has been happening for quite a while, I know Dr. Kojo Asante almost sounds like a broken record now, because he and CDD, they've been at this for a long, long time. And considering, in spite of all that advocacy, it's actually getting worse. Just look at what is here on the screens. I'm curious, why? Why is it getting worse in spite of the OSP? Right after that video we saw the video on the day the NDC primary was happening. That lady was invited. So there was consequence. And then we saw the MPP one, people were invited. Investigations began. And you think, okay, well, the OSP is doing something that should at least get people worried and be more skeptical. And then there's this weekend, this happens on your screen. They're now talking to the cameras, saying we won't vote if you don't give us the money. It's getting worse, not better, in spite of all the interventions. Why? Why is that?
Thank you, and greetings to my brother Kojo and your panelists who are in the studio and your viewers. Let me say I have consistently made a point that when there are no consequences for wrongdoing, impunity takes over. True, there have been actions in the past where the OSP has gone in to invite people or arrested people, etc. But we need to see some results whereby, as a result of you collecting money for voting or giving out money for voting, you have been found guilty in court or convicted or something. Today I was watching CNN, and I saw the former president of Mauritania has been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. And I said, when are we going to get this? We have the evidence all over, but then nothing seems to be happening. It is good that the OSP is going after them, but we must try and get some people at least used as scapegoats, so that the people know that this is a serious business. If getting conviction is too difficult, because of course I understand how the criminal justice system in the country works, let's amend the law so to make it easier to get people convicted for this. Because like what Dr. Kojo Asante said, These monies are not free monies. The taxpayer is going to pay for it. Once they spend these monies for all this number of years and they get into office, they are definitely going to recoup these monies. And of course, not only recoup these monies, after recouping it, they are thinking about their next election. Come to think about it, I was seated here trying to do some calculation. Look at the salary for the president or the vice president. Let's assume that they even take home 50,000 a month.
Yeah.
For the 8 years, it doesn't even come to 5 million. So the question we like to ask is, where did they get this money from?
That's a good question.
This is why I've been calling for lifestyle audit. We need to do lifestyle audit on these people, not only arresting the receivers and maybe the givers, but at times the givers, we need to do lifestyle audit on them. That as a member of parliament, how much do you earn in a month? And if we should sum it together for the 4 years that you are going to be in parliament, how much are you making? And if that amount is just a small percentage of what you are giving out, then you must explain to whoever is investigating where you got that money from. Otherwise, we must make our laws a bit friendly, because fighting corruption is difficult. Corruption is one thing, that getting people convicted for it is not easy. So we must make the law say that once we can establish beyond reasonable doubt that this money did not come from your lawful sources of income, then the onus should go onto you to prove that, yes, apart from my salary as a public servant or as a president, as a member of parliament, as auditor general, I have these other sources which is not known to you people, hence I'm able to do that. But let's even grant it that with that admitting that those sources are genuine. Is that what we are expecting to do as a country? Now, in the public, people are clearly threatening that you don't pay me, I am not going to exercise my civil responsibility. I think this is going too far. We don't know what is going to happen next.
Mr. Dolo, so give me a quick proposal. What should happen differently now? Because I want to take that to the political reps with me in the studio. What do you propose must happen?
I think what has to happen first is we should look at the laws which we have, and that the law should make it much easier for the special prosecutor or whoever is going to hold the politicians accountable to be able to secure some convictions for us. As for the politicians, they will deceive us. They will tell us it is not a bribe, it is transportation money. They can call it whatever they want. But we are not idiots. We know that these are monies to influence or to buy votes. We are doing auction, not election. So I think that we as Ghanaians must make it easier for whoever is fighting the corruption to win the cases. So we should look at the laws and see if we can amend it to make it easier for the OSP to secure some convictions for us. I think that will help us.
Okay, and I'll come to Kojo Asante pretty shortly because I know they've been working on. Let me come to the studio now. The reps from the parties. Mr. Bande, you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that good evening to our cherished listeners. Evans, the whole conversation has to do with a cycle of events in a political party. So we go for congresses once every 4 years. We do primaries for parliamentary candidates once every 4 years. And in between, you have party people who are politicians in the lower class, the middle class, and the upper class. They struggle to build a political movement. They work just as you work in your organization. They serve just as civil servants serve. And so the election is the only avenue where they get some sort of motivation from individuals who are contesting elections, be it money for expenses in terms of transport, money for traveling or to meet, because people will leave their homes to go and meet a delegate, an aspirant at a specific place. Sometimes they have to travel from districts to the regional capitals to wait just to meet, a presidential candidate, a national executive. In the cases of districts, they have to wait to meet a parliamentary aspirant. And when they receive these gifts, we cannot bastardize it, criminalize it, because is coming from politicians and that the receivers are also politicians. So, therefore, it's unethical. What is more important is that we should be questioning the sources of the funds. So, for example, in the recent past MPP primaries, you have seen government officials sharing money, and in the case of your colleague journalist, who is going to visit Ablekumanov, yes, he says that, oh, they do it, and so they share money.
No, not him. It was Collins Amwa.
Yes, so he admitted, said that, oh, they shared money.
He said he had money in an envelope for the TNT.
The special prosecutor should invite this gentleman and ask him, where do you get the money from? The Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, on a reasonable calculation, have spent about 81 million.
John Mahama spent...
Invite him.
Spent 40...
Invite him and ask him, where did you get the money?
Would that apply to John Mahama too? He also spent 14.
Everyone, let them show John Mahama is not a public officer. He's a former president. He's a private individual.
Oh, so this question about where they got the money from...
So I'm just saying that we should ask people who are serving the public whether or not your salary, your allowances is enough to afford you that kind of money that you share. So instead of the OSP dancing around the fire and going after individuals who are excited because after 4 years they've received money from an aspirant and bastardizing that and it's criminal, that is not the way to go. The way to go is that the OSP should write to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, write to the various public servants, appointees of government who are seen sharing money.
So you're saying that they, in terms of the scrutiny and the prosecution possibly,
yes,
should only focus on candidates who are public officers?
If you don't give, they don't receive. If a private person, why do we hold churches accountable for the monies they have?
So you're saying, once you get into a position, then you shouldn't be scrutinized for how much money you throw.
I'm just saying that once the giver is a public officer, an appointee of government, then he can be subjected to some level of scrutiny. But if an individual, a private individual, decides to say, I have $1 million and I want to share.
So you don't see anything wrong?
No.
So you contested in the General Secretary's position, right?
Yes.
So if you don't see anything with your opponent coming in with a bag of cash, calling the delegates and giving them $10,000 each, when you can only afford, say, 500 CDs. You don't see anything wrong with that?
Where do political parties get money to fund? So we cannot be talking about the end effect when we don't talk about the problem. So where are the sources of funding for political parties?
Yeah, but fundamentally, you have to deal with holistically.
Yeah, so holistic.
Those who are selling the votes, those who are giving it, regardless of whether they are in public or not.
They receive because Ghanaians are in hardship. So the people you saw in the video are actually expressing joy because to come by 10 cedis at this time in our economy is very difficult. And you have government appointees who are sharing money. No, Evans, the bigger picture is the one we saw in Asenot, where a whole government has to reduce development into vote-induced projects. And that is what we should be talking about. That government should not reduce the business of development and growth of the people.
But it's on abuse of incumbents is what you're talking about.
No, that is the more critical issue, the more serious issues where a government goes to spend public resources into a particular project just because he wants to get votes from the people. That is more dangerous for the economy.
Let me bring Haruna. Haruna, you agree with this view? You're also a politician. You're the general secretary of the party. Your party is obviously the latest.
I'm a deputy general secretary.
You're the deputy general secretary, yes, of course. Maybe I'm prophesying.
If you can put the view in perspective, so I respond.
Yes or no? I'm coming back to the solution. As Dana Domelevo had said, people need to be prosecuted.
On
inducing voters.
Okay. Thank you very much, Evans. First and foremost, I say good evening to your cherished viewers and our colleagues on Zoom. That is former Auditor General and then Dr. Kojo Nyasanti, right? Mm-hmm. First, my good brother, John Mahama is a public officer. by virtue of Article 71. He's an Article 71 holder, so he's a public officer. So to question his source of fund as to how he got the 40 million was very legitimate, and that must be put in the right perspective. For me, what has been said is what all the political parties frown on. None of the political parties in Ghana actually gives the hands for people to buy votes, because we need to give room for competition to take place. And in every competition, we don't ask that votes must be bought, and we don't also request that delegates should request for money in that perspective.
But it's happening. So what do you do about it?
So if such things are happening, that is when people perceive that monies that are given to delegates are to induce their votes, then it is left with us to get a verifiable evidence to the fact that monies that are being given to delegates on election day or prior to elections actually meant to buy their votes. And the example you cited, what Colin said is that, yes, he gave, and he gave them transportation. Others accepted on fact that they were given food. There is no law in Ghana that bans a politician to give delegates tea and tea.
But we also saw others, and those who have been declared wanted, saying that they just make the money. This is how much I've made in this primary loan, and they remove this bundle of cash from their pocket.
Yeah.
And that is not linked to TNT. It's just saying, this is what I've been giving to vote. You heard another delegate say...
They didn't say they have been giving to vote.
Okay, let me give you another one. Another delegates in the Secretary Duma say to us that they promise us money. If the money does not come, we are not going to vote. And he said no money, no vote.
And that is irresponsibility, because you don't need money before you vote.
Yeah, but that's the counter to you, that you now see a delegate telling you that I was promised money to go and vote. If the money doesn't come, I'm not voting.
And that is what we are all talking about. Yeah. That is a mark of
So how do you fix it?
That is why all of us, you see, all the panelists have spoken against this particular canker. And that obviously should...
But why is it getting worse? You are a politician. You're Deputy General Secretary of your party. And it's your party that's the latest example of this. His party has had its own fair share. We've talked about it. But yours is the latest one. And we must say, what we've seen in your party is... There's bad in NDC, but yours is really far more serious than
what I
have seen. Also because of how blatant and the impunity with which it was done. Your incumbent party is right, is it not?
I don't think so. I don't see where the impunity in which it was done.
You don't see that?
The point is that there is no any verifiable evidence that votes were being bought. We can see on video people keeping money, people holding envelopes. You talk about envelopes that have been branded. Did you see any of the candidates offering money to these delegates? There was no such evidence.
But the
delegates holding money.
The delegate's admission is what we are using.
That cannot be confirmed, because the delegate admitting did not confirm that somebody actually gave him the money. The delegate could bag the money in an envelope, brand the envelope, put it in the packet, or demonstrate or show it to the media.
We know.
Just to show.
You know, and I know, that you're just making this argument.
No.
Just for the sake of the argument.
It's not for the sake, because the game...
But and that is why this problem is getting worse. In fact, when I was asking the question, I think you just illustrated why.
We have to...
Well, the parties are playing the ostrich.
We have
say always for TNT.
We have to make the effort to get the people behind the scene. But for us to have a video that sees people holding money, who gives them the money unanswered, what is the purpose of the money is conjecture. Because people sit and conjecture that the money that has been given them is to buy their votes or to buy their conscience, which is not verifiable. The person holding the money tells you he had money. Who gave him the money? So for me, we need to get to the bag of it, to get to know how these monies are given them, or get somebody who is giving this money, so that at least we can hinge on that fact and take those persons on. But at an aftermath event where videos are being circulated, people are making a lot of commentary, and that does not sit in the laws that has been quoted.
Big picture, you agree there's a problem, there's a crisis when it comes to vote buying. Do you agree at least?
Vote buying is not even tolerated by any political
I know, but from the evidence and what we know, from what we've seen, it is happening. And at a very alarming
I can't confirm it is happening because the
You also
evidence that I have
disagree
seen,
that we have a
I
crisis.
can't confirm that it is
I
vote
agree
buying.
that the crisis is not the political parties, but the way we are tackling the perceived problem. And for me, like you said, the NDC detests vote buying, but we must question the giver. And I'm saying that the anti-corruption crusaders should be inviting the individuals who have been seen in this video sharing money to explain their source of wealth. That is what a serious country should be doing. But if you are questioning poor people who have received money because they need money and they are facing hardship, at the end of the day, they will not tell you that they've been bribed. They will tell you that they have received money. And I do not think that the people who I saw on that video understand really what they were saying. They do not. And their intention was not to tell any journalist that they were being bribed. But my point is that in these circumstances where we believe that a government has failed, in these circumstances that we believe that there's hardship in the system, government appointees of this current government, Nana Addo Bawumia-led government, should not be seen sharing money, in a broad daylight like this, when they are saying there's no money. And that's what we saw. Most of the people we saw sharing money are government appointees.
Well, we haven't
Special
seen,
prosecutors should invite these people.
We haven't seen anybody actually sharing up, apart from, of course, Collins, who, I don't know, is he a government appointee?
No.
Who admitted that he gave TNT. He said he gave
He
for
admitted
TNT.
it. He said he shared, but I have seen the one at Jefferson
I
Saki
didn't.
admitting that sharing of money is allowed.
He did not. He admitted
I've
giving
seen
them
him.
food.
I have seen
Yes.
him.
But what he
If you review the video, you will
that's
see
what-
him admitting that sharing of money is
that's
allowed.
on TV when we were covering.
So-
That's what I heard.
If
He
we
said
analyze these appointees, and my question is that most of these appointees, without the appointment and the positions they occupy, cannot share the kind of money they are sharing.
Okay.
So special prosecutors should stop dancing around the fire and complain about the judiciary. Invite the sitting vice president of the republic, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, to explain where he got money, and the MPP members who said that he shared pickups, 100,000, 300,000 in some cases to some delegates. He should explain.
Once you make that argument,
Yes.
then you also admitting that John Mahama must also be invited.
You can invite John Mahama, but John Mahama is not managing the public purse today.
Hold on. Let me bring in Dr. Kojo Asante. Doc, let's drill down to the proposals that I know CDD is championing on this. As you've heard, this obviously is the challenge because there are different views on this. What will work in dealing with this problem fundamentally?
Well, thank you. But first of all, let me react a little bit to what I've heard in the last couple of minutes. First of all, I am actually really surprised that we've spent the last minute basically belittling a very, very serious issue. My brother Mustafa and Haruna, who are there, their own party leaders have admitted that we have a serious problem, whether it's Mark Bedu, General Mosquito. Several people have come out, the speakers make mention of it. We have done extensive work on party primaries, elections, showing video evidence of people engaged in vote buying. This is not a today matter.
That's monetization.
Now, well, I mean, I don't know what the difference we're talking about. At the end, yes, we are monetizing politics, and that's where the problem is, right? But on the vote buying issue, if you tell me that as a political party, you have created a narrative within the party that ordinary citizens who are working for the party because they support the party, they support the agenda of the party, that their reward is that when elections come, they can basically extort money or expect money from people who are vying for election. So if you don't have money, can you go and vie for election? How do we organize political parties that way, expecting that these same political parties can go and put themselves up as governments to govern us with all the ethics and the integrity that is expected of the officers of that party? I think we have to deal with the realities that we are facing. We are not in a good place. And what admitting or accepting that we have a problem and working together to solve it doesn't hurt anybody. It actually helps us move forward. So I am pleading with all of you who are in the parties that you have to help for us to begin to reverse this trend. Yes, I can understand the politicking and all of that stuff. But if we continue to go the path that we are going, I'm telling you, those parties, they will not survive. Already you can see the agitations around about party and what elections and what it means and so on. So I am really pleading. And this, you see, political parties are the only quasi private organizations that are written into the constitution. And there is an expectation that their internal party organization and activities must conform to democratic principles and consistent with the constitution. Our elections do not allow vote buying. So if you are going to put a platform for an individual who is going to contest a public election, you cannot start the process with tainted with vote buying. Then you have already violated the process. So we cannot be doing different things and expecting different results. We have to work hard to begin. There are many Ghanaians who genuinely want our elections to be clean, and the party leaders must lead the way. Civil society, we are prepared to support. So, Evans, on your questions about how we proceed, I think we need a standardized process for regulating internal party process. I know the parties have tried with their constitutions and so on, but it is a competition. So if somebody is doing it and another person is not doing it, then it's very difficult for us to apply the rules across board. In most jurisdictions, there is a process for regulating internal party process so that everybody is subject to the same rules and have an equal chance of creating vibrant parties that solve problems. The other issue is that we need to reform our campaign financing rules, particularly the expenditure. Because I can tell you, it has changed over the years from little things like T-shirts and so on, to the point that some people were giving Ubers, flat screen televisions, all kinds of things, which is going to keep getting expensive. So the expenditure is not necessary. A lot of the things like media and all of those things that people overspend, billboards, they don't need. But the only thing that is stopping people from conforming is that it is not standardized. If I don't do it, my opponent might do it, and therefore I have to try and also mobilize money. So we have to look at the expenditure side. And then I agree that yes, if we are going to expect a lot from the parties, we also have to look at state support for parties. Even when they go and organize their internal party processes, and then the Electoral Commission goes to supervise, why should we charge them if we want them to basically go through a political process that puts them in place to vie for national elections? That could be a cost that the state takes. I think the last time the NDC paid, I think 5 million or so they were charged. So these things there are ways in which, in kind, the state can support parties to reduce their cost. But that would also make a difference if the expenditure is also reduced.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done. We cannot, in this country, continue to have a democracy if we don't have a multi-party democracy that is fit for purpose. And for that to happen, our parties have to be responsive.
Yeah.
And they have to be democratic.
And that's an important point. And down at the level, what about that suggestion there at the end, which is that whilst we implement the measures, you also have to come to a point where we support the parties. The state funding of political parties conversation. Where do you stand on that, Daniel?
Yeah, I will quickly come there, but let me quickly react to some of the statements made by our colleagues in the studio. And I would like to admonish them that democracy and election is not happening only in Ghana. Democracy is all over the world. And even in Ghana, this is not the first time we are going for election. We have had the First Republic, Second Republic, Third Republic. We are in the Fourth Republic. We didn't see what is happening now those days. So there is real problem. They should not downplay it, especially by telling us that, oh no, who is going to stand in public and say that delegates who are coming, gentlemen and ladies, take this amount of money and go and vote for me? Nobody's going to ever say that. That's why I say I think there's a problem with the law, because we want to try and arrest or identify the intention behind giving of the money, which is never going to come from any politician's mouth. All that is going to say that, oh, I know that you people are coming from far and near and you have to be fed, you have to be transported. Take this to defray some of your expenses. But indirectly, what he's saying is that use this money, take this money and vote for me. So please, they should give us the benefit of the doubt that we have seen the trend over the years. It was not like this. Things are getting out of hands. And again, if we do comparison around the world, there are several countries who are going to the poll each year, just as we also do. And the same thing is not happening. I have made the point that you have just, the question that you have raised.
About the poll, yes.
Yes. I said, coming into office is a public service. And for that matter, the cost must be borne by the state. The only thing that I do not agree with is that the money is given to the politicians, because if you give it to him, you are only increasing.
So who do you give it to?
Yeah, I suggested that we can, for instance, create a common platform. For instance, we can say Joy FM, we are going to buy airtime, maybe 1 hour or 30 minutes, and share it among all the
parties. Okay.
So they just come in, you have 15 or 20 minutes, you finish, you go. So you don't pay for that, the state pay for it.
Yeah, Mr. Damalabo, unfortunately, because of time, but great suggestions there. And this is something that we'll be doing as we approach next year, so that we can curate this a bit more. And I know CDD is doing some great work on it. We'll also work with them together to try and see what we can do to get advocacy going. I have a minute each for both of you, by the way. At least, what are you willing to commit to?
We are willing to commit to reforms.
Okay. Well, what reforms would you want to see?
For me, at this point, I believe that if you ask me, I don't know what my superiors would think, but my position is that we should be looking at the givers and their sources of money.
I think you meant that.
And then also, should we get to a point where, like the Melovo said, political parties are supported in terms of the expenditures that we incur.
I agree. Don't give them the money, but put it in the pool.
We agree. I mean, we agree. Whatever way, it reduces the burden on political.
What are you willing to commit to? Based on what you know happens in the parties.
For us, what we have to commit to is that we need to contribute our quota to strengthening the democratic dispensation in our country. Today, this morning, when we met at the party headquarters, the General Secretary placed a call to where these gentlemen are coming from and asked the Constituency Executive Committee to do a verification and investigation on this particular matter and report back to him.
The people who have been shown in the OS.
Shown because
and intention of that is to do what? You want to hand them over to the police, or what is it?
The party would want to
have they invited
get
the Vice
to know
President?
that Have they invited the John Mahama?
No.
John Mahama has done I've always restrained myself not to go on that line. John Mahama is even the worst person if you want to talk about it.
Have you invited the vice president? There's evidence.
I am
please,
somebody who has taken bribe and then he has been investigated and then
once this is started, I'll have to end the show.